Good morning, everybody. And thank you for the invitation to come, and thanks for checking to make sure that we have iPhones in the room. That always makes me happy. What I want to talk about today is the theme of curiosity, and most particularly the question why. And I want you all to take a minute and think about, when is the last time you asked the question why? When did you engage in curiosity? When did you go and say, what's the question? What's the answer? Why is there a red circle for every TEDx talk? Why are the Amador passes yellow and black? I think your colors are something different. Why is every Apple product either launched on a Tuesday or a Wednesday? Why does bad news always show up in the press on a Friday? Why is the thing on the side of your shoe called a swoosh? The power of why is the power of curiosity. And you, as the class of 2020, freshmen, why are you called freshmen? So lots of theories as to why you're called freshmen, but how many of you actually gone back and looked and tried to understand where that came from, and why sophomore comes after freshman, and then junior is above freshman and below senior? Think about the question why. And what I want to take you through is a journey and a set of questions and an understanding of curiosity. Because I believe fundamentally, innovation, great ideas, great products, great breakthroughs come from curiosity. But I think our culture, our society, in fact, tries to push down curiosity. It tries to push down asking the question why. Just think about when you were very, very young, 2 or 3, and you would always ask the question, why? 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 What would your parents do? And I'm a parent too. I'd be like, no, stop asking why. Enough of that. I'm here to tell you, I want your next 4 years at Amador, I want your next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, your careers, to be about the question why. Because I think fundamentally that's what you're going to be learning in your education, but it's also the way in which we're going to move the world forward. So everybody's heard the quote or the phrase, curiosity killed the cat, right? Why do we say curiosity killed the cat? It's because occasionally, things happen and people get into trouble because they start to poke around and look around the corners of things. And this is just part of the way I think that as a culture we go and say, be careful with that curiosity thing. Be careful about asking the question why. Even one of my favorite characters here, Curious George, who is curious, ends up getting into trouble all the time, right? What's the lesson that we get out of Curious George? Be careful about asking the question why. But I'm here to tell you today some of the biggest inventions, some of the products, some of the things that you carry with you today that are fundamentally part of your world are because somebody stopped and asked the question why and didn't accept the answer that was conventional wisdom. So I think fundamentally, curiosity is an incredible power that we all have within us, and we need to nurture it, we need to let it grow, we need to bring it out. And part of the way that we can do this is to actually go and look at what are the characteristics of curious people. And instead of going and saying, no, curiosity is going to kill you, or the cat, is going to get into trouble because it's being curious, let's go and find these and celebrate these particular characteristics in ourselves and in our friends and folks around us. First of all, people who are curious listen without judgment. They don't rush and ask the question or push on the answer and say, no, that's the way it's always been. That's why it should be. They listen without judgment and they engage in the question. That's part of what it is to be curious. And they ask lots of questions. That is the currency, that is the way in which we are curious, that is the way in which we as people engage and look for new answers, is we start with a question. Curious people are not afraid to ask lots of questions. They seek surprise. The greatest joy in finding an answer to a question is when you find out that it's completely different than what you expected. When that answer is something that you thought you knew forever, but then you go back and look at it and you find out that no, in fact, the reason why is completely different than we thought. That surprise, that is what's going to fuel your curiosity, and it's going to fuel the innovation that you drive. They're fully present. This means that curious people are engaged in the world around them, and they're looking at things and they're testing things and they're going over and saying, why is there an X on this box right here? And why is this over here? They are engaged and they are constantly thinking. This is not life on autopilot, this is life on discovery. That's what it means to be curious. That's the opportunity that you have today, tomorrow, and throughout your lives. Curious people are willing to be wrong. I can tell you I think I'm a relatively curious person, but this is the biggest challenge for me. I hate being wrong. I hate people coming and saying, no, what you thought was actually completely different. But to be curious, to be innovative, to drive things forward, you have to be willing to be wrong. And that is a fundamental part of being curious. And that means as you see this in other people, you don't want to put them down, you don't want to push on them, you don't want to criticize them for being wrong. That is in fact part of the scientific process. It is in fact part of the way that we learn, is by making mistakes. So engage being wrong, and that will help you be curious. You need to make time for curiosity. It actually takes energy to be able to ask the question why and then to investigate. It's no good just to ask the question and then let it go from there. You need to take time and you need to engage in the question and you need to take it forward. And like I said earlier, you have to be willing to be wrong and you have to be willing to say, I don't know the answer. That's the way in which you engage in the curiosity that will fundamentally allow you to do things that transform the world around us. And that's my greatest hope for you, by the way, is that your curiosity will fuel innovation that will change our world, that will change the world you live in. It'll change Pleasanton, California, the United States, the world. And finally, the last habit of being a curious person, the eighth characteristic of being a curious person, is you don't let the past hurts affect your future. You don't let your past mistakes influence how you think about the next journey, the next step along the way. You need to be constantly engaged and you need to constantly drive forward. So these characteristics are in all of us, and I think we need to nurture them. We need to bring them out. You need to recognize them in your teachers, in your family, in your friends, in your brothers and your sisters, because curiosity is the thing that ultimately makes for a great education and ultimately makes for the biggest impact in the world around you. Curiosity also is key in terms of embracing the opportunity to have luck, to find things just as they happen. And I pulled out a few things that have changed our world that in fact weren't done through some very kind of process-oriented way, but in fact were luck. This is the pacemaker. Pacemaker has saved millions of lives. It was discovered by accident. Somebody made a mistake. They put the wrong resistor in the circuit and noticed that it created this thing that looked a lot like a heartbeat. They were curious, they were engaged, and they also embraced the fact that occasionally luck plays a role in what happens. The X-ray was a similar thing. It was being developed for a completely different purpose. They noticed this other thing happening. Their curiosity got engaged. They went in and they in fact discovered something that gets used every single day in every community around the world and again has saved millions of lives. Superglue was an accident. This is something I use on a regular basis because I make lots of mistakes and break lots of things. This was actually designed for something completely different than what it was. But the person who designed it, the person who was thinking about it, the person who created, engaged in their curiosity and said, okay, it didn't work for what I thought it would, but maybe there's another application. They asked the question why, they engaged in it, and ultimately created something that is part of all of our lives. And my favorite is Play-Doh, something that certainly was part of my life growing up and was part of, I think, all of our lives growing up. But it started out life as a wallpaper cleaner. It was not successful at all because you didn't need to clean your wallpaper that often. But what ended up happening is people discovered, they asked why, they asked what else can we do with it, and it turned into a product that in fact every child around the world is probably engaged in, or certainly I've eaten my fair share of Play-Doh growing up. But all of these things came out of curiosity. They came out of embracing and engaging and asking the question why. And so as you go through your day, you go through your life, you go through the next 4 years, the question why has got to be part of what you do on a daily basis. It's got to be part of the curiosity that's going to drive you forward. As you heard earlier, I was part of the team that created the iPhone. We didn't start out with the conventional wisdom of what a phone should be, but Steve Jobs told us he wanted us to make a phone that people could fall in love with. Why? Why should we do that? How do you do that? What does that mean? Those are the questions that ultimately fueled us as a team to come up with a product that has changed in many ways the way that we live our lives and the way that we work with them. The fact that there are no buttons on the phone has allowed things to happen, but ultimately conventional wisdom would have said, no, every phone has to have a button. It's got to have an antenna, it's got to have this. But Steve Jobs was the ultimate person who really pushed us, who really pushed entire teams to ask the question why, to be curious about the answers and the opportunities in front of them. And not to let people get stuck in the status quo, not to take the rote answer because it was the easy one, but in fact to break out of that. That's the opportunity you have. That's the opportunity that you have over the next 4 years to not settle for this is the way it's always been done, but in fact to look and ask why. To go outside of the boundaries of what's been done before and start to explore and expand beyond that. And this can be, asking the question why can be of mundane kinds of things, such as, have you ever asked yourself why there's a little sticker on the fruit and why it's so darn hard to get that sticker off, and what do you do with the sticker once you get it off? Right? We all accept this as part of our life. But maybe you should ask the question, why are they putting on the sticker on the fruit, and is in fact there a better way? Is there a more innovative way to accomplish what they're looking for? Is there a better way to educate yourself as you go throughout the years? Is there a better way to engage with the problems that are in front of us? It's going to come from curiosity, and it's going to come from asking the question why. And my hope, my sincere hope, is that within this room there are a set of people who are going to ask the question why, and they're going to keep digging, and they're going to look at this molecule, which happens to be a cancer molecule, and they're going to say, why should we accept that this is the way that health gets influenced as we age, as we go through life? It's in this room, it's in you, that we're going to get the power of people with great educations, with great minds, who are curious, who are going to look at this and they're going to say, there's got to be a better way, there's got to be an innovative way, there's got to be a new way to think about how we treat cancer and many, many other things in our world. But it's got to start with being curious, and it's got to start with the question why. So, over the next 4 years and much, much beyond, my sincere hope, my sincere challenge to you is stay curious and don't let yourself get pushed into a particular direction, but keep asking the question why. Thank you.